It's only been 3 games, and it's really weird to make a video like this. It really is, but believe me when I say that a part of this video comes from a place of love. Well, does it really? I guess you could say that. Yeah, I guess you could say that. Let's talk today about New York Rangers backup goaltender Jaroslav Halak. And I know it's not really all too common practice to make videos about backup goalies, but when it comes to Halak and the story that he has, it's kind of wild seeing where everything had gone from year to year to year, from team to team to team, and how quickly things had seemed to have gone a little bit worse for Halak and his gameplay. He's 37 years old as a smaller goaltender. He's only 5'11", and Halak is a guy that had spent a good chunk of time going around from different teams. He was initially a Montreal Canadiens guy, drafted in 2003, and he had stayed in that organization for 7 years. In 2009-2010, he had a .924 save percentage and a .240 goals against average in 45 games played. He was the Habs guy. And eventually, he got traded. He got traded in order for the Canadiens to put the sole duty of the crease on one younger Carey Price. Now, this was seen as a pretty interesting move back in this time frame because even though Jaroslav Halak was older than Price, he was only older by 2 years. So a lot of Canadiens fans at the time, a decade ago, were like, wait a minute, why are they doing this? Why are they trading away Halak? Are we really going to make Carey Price the guy when we already had Halak right there doing however well he was doing? He was the Team Slovakia goalie at the Olympics. He was really good over there, and he got sent over to St. Louis and immediately became a starter goaltender there with a .910 save percentage and 57 games played in 2010-2011. But for the Montreal Canadiens, it was kind of an interesting experiment, just to see how Halak had spent so much time developing in the AHL, and then he had 2 seasons pretty much where he was a member of the Canadiens full-time, splitting the duty of goaltending with that Carey Price. It's just, at the end of the day, the Habs went with Price, and I guess you could say that was that. The reason we're making this video, though, is because if you go 2 teams into the future with Halak, actually, no, not 2 teams. Oh my goodness, 4 teams? He went from the Blues to the Sabres to the Capitals to the Islanders, over to the Bruins and then the Canucks and then the Rangers. Ay, how many teams is that? Habs, Blues, and then the other teams we had talked about, Buffalo, Washington, Islanders, Boston, Vancouver, New York. It's been 8 teams for Jaroslav Halak in the last decade and a bit, and his days with most of these teams were pretty good, all things considered. He had the .930 save percentage in Washington to start out his tenure over there, to end off his tenure over there because he was sort of a rental. He was an Islander where he was pretty much one of their main guys for a span of about 4 years. Then going over to Boston, he had a .922 save percentage and 40 games played as he was splitting the load with Tuukka Rask. And eventually, after ending off his Boston Bruins tenure with a .905 save percentage and a .253 goals against in 19 games played, he became a free agent and he signed with Vancouver. Now, this is kind of going over into territory that I'm a lot more familiar with now because last season, Halak was the backup to Demko, and even though he had a .902 save percentage and a .294 goals against, which, those numbers aren't that bad in comparison to how I might be talking about this guy, but realistically, Jaroslav Halak was not a good goaltender for Vancouver. He really was one of the most unreliable guys that the Canucks had in their organization for years. And with the salary bonuses attached to the contract that he had signed, plus the fact that the Canucks, trying to make the playoffs, had to rely on him for back-to-backs in situations where they really just weren't that great because the defense on the Canucks was not great either. Ultimately, Jaro Halak was hung out to dry. And there were only really 2 games on the season where Halak was legitimately good and he was the reason they won the game. In fact, there were many other games where Halak was arguably the reason they lost. A .902 save percentage is pretty bad, but you go over to his game log in the 21-22 season and you can see games sprinkled in all over the place with .893 save percentages. He's got a .571 save percentage against New Jersey, a .583 save percentage against his old Islanders team. He had a few really bad showcases, and when it came to the Canucks fans' confidence in Halak, it wasn't there by the time the halfway point of the season rolled along, and This is why I wanted to make a video about Halak and what he's been up to nowadays, because he was a free agent and eventually he signed with the New York Rangers, where today, in 3 games played, Halak has a .867 save percentage and a .369 goals against average. Now, yesterday's game of the Rangers versus the Islanders, they scored 0 goals. It was a 3-0 New York Islanders win, so Halak wasn't really the reason why they lost, but at the same time, I mean, some of these other games, .762 save percentages, a .909 save percentage thrown in there. An .867 is not really something that you want out of your backup goaltender, and based off of the reputation that I'd been seeing Halak pretty much hold up for himself from the Rangers fan base early on in this season, I'm starting to think that, yeah, maybe you guys are feeling the same thing that Canucks fans felt early on last season as well. This is a quote from Halak from the earlier game against the Blue Jackets, I believe. "I'm not going to talk about our play. I'm just going to talk about myself. I just got outplayed by their goalie. I need to be better next game, and hopefully down the road I can help the guys win some games and get some points. That wasn't my best game tonight." Now, you could watch the tape and blame some of the defense and the tip-ins and all that stuff. That's very fair. It's just Jaroslav Halak is a 37-year-old goalie, and he's saying pretty much the right things in the media. That, hey, he's not going to talk about defense, he's going to talk about himself. Because at the end of the day, if he's going out there and letting in 5 goals on, 21 shots against, that is unacceptable. A .762 save percentage, I don't care how many breakaways and shots in front with guys being uncovered with pretty much the open net to shoot at there are. A .762 save percentage is not a good save percentage in any game. And Halak knows that, that's why he's taking accountability. That's a veteran answer right there. It is just kind of interesting to me, though, to note what happened with this guy. How he was supposed to be the next one in Montreal, and how he was eventually outdueled by Carey Price. How he had bounced around to 8 separate teams before becoming a pretty good backup in Boston, only to just completely become a shell of his former self in Vancouver and carry over that same unlucky mojo to the New York Rangers. Now, things can change, of course. I hope for everybody that it changes and he gets a little bit better and his save percentage goes up as the season goes on. But at the same time, this sort of thing of Halak going in there, playing the games that he has and having the numbers that he has too, it's sort of sparked up a lot of conversation amongst Rangers fans that I've seen as to the value of Alexander Georgiev having a backup that is legitimately capable at winning you games and stealing one once in a while. Obviously, Halak is not the number 1 guy on this team, that's Igor Shesterkin, but you need somebody to be able to fill in the holes where it counts, and so far Halak has not shown that he is capable of doing that, much so in the way that he didn't show that off in Vancouver last year. So, I don't know why I wanted to make this video. I guess it was just more of an update, I guess, because for Canucks fans, I know a lot of you might be thinking, hey, he was pretty bad last year. How's he doing now? Well, unfortunately, it hasn't really been all too much better, but at the same time, the Rangers have some defensive issues that I feel they need to sort out before really going out there and blaming the goaltender 110%, but still, at the same time, an 8.6-something save percentage is not great to kick off the 22-23 campaign, but we'll see where Halak goes from here. I wish him the best, of course. I hope he gets up to a 9-something save percentage, just so it can be rubbed in the Canucks' faces again, just how much they mistreated a guy and ended up tanking his numbers, because, yeah, it happens here. Right? Talk to the comments, your thoughts about Jaroslav Halak if you're a Canadiens fan, a Canucks fan, a Bruins, a Sabres, a Capitals, or a Islanders, or a Rangers fan as well. What are your thoughts on this guy and his career so far? I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.